Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I would also like to thank the honourable members for Harlow, Winchester and Twickenham for securing this debate, and for all members for all their contributions. I was listening hard, and I will try my very best to address all the points that you've raised. And I would also like to add my thanks to the amazing teachers, teaching staff, parents, and everyone who's been involved in their continued dedication and commitment to delivering high-quality education, face-to-face and remotely, to all pupils during this truly unprecedented period. And education has been a national priority throughout the pandemic. And when we took the decision to ask schools and colleges to restrict attendance, it was done to reduce the overall number of social contacts in our communities, not because schools and colleges have become significantly less safe. And now I know that many people have said they were delighted that the Prime Minister announced a full return for face-to-face learning. And our focus must be on supporting children and young people on reversing the negative effects of the pandemic and the time they've had out of school. And the best place to start with this is in school or college. And most teachers and pupils can't wait, and that's not to mention at least their parents. And we know there's been strong support for face-to-face education. East Kent College polled their learners just a couple of days ago and found that 97% wanted to return to on-site education. Now, as pupils return, testing is key, and as the Honourable Member for Winchester said, logistics and the scale of the challenge are what we need to rise to. And school and college staff are already playing a vital role in rapid asymptomatic testing, with around 97% of all eligible schools and colleges equipped to deliver testing today, with more than 4 million tests actually being delivered across educational settings. And of course, that can-do attitude that was talked about by the Honourable Member for East Hampshire and Winchester, we will see all across our country with all of our school, teaching and college staff. But alongside our approach to testing, we're also extending the use of face coverings to all indoor environments, including classrooms, unless social distancing can be maintained. And we're recommending this additional precautionary measure until Easter, when this will be reviewed. And we know the introduction has been supported by a number of unions and 82% of adults, according to a recent survey. But I do note the concern of members. Despite the return to on-site provision for many pupils and students as possible, we are aware of the huge amount of work that must be done to support education catch-up. My honourable friend for Harlow rightly highlights disadvantaged children, and disadvantaged children are at the heart of this government's focus. And they are performing now better than 10 years ago in 2011, with the attainment gap narrowed by 13% at 11 and 9% at 16. And as someone who went to a Knowsley Comprehensive School, I know firsthand the impact that disadvantage has on life chances. And I was interested to hear the member for Ilford North, who talked about what a decade of Conservative Party government could do. And I hope he was looking at those fantastic attainment gap narrowing figures, which of course have been the result of our school standards and our approach to education over the last decade. And if he wants to look at the figures, I shall repeat them again: 13% at 11 and 9% at 16 since 2011. And of course, we'll rightly focus on helping these young people catch up. We have, of course, have a £1.7 billion catch-up fund, but of course it has to be outcomes-driven, as the Honourable Member for Harlow mentioned. And the Department has commissioned an independent research agency to analyse catch-up needs and monitor progress over this academic year, which will help to understand the extent to which pupils may have fallen behind and how the impact of the post-learning is felt differently across the country. Of course, many honourable members have also mentioned we've appointed an Education Recovery Commissioner, Sir Kevin Collins, who will advise ministers on the approach for education recovery, and we will work with him and the education sector to develop specific initiatives for summer schools. A number of people mentioned summer schools. The Honourable Member for Burton mentioned that many schools in her area had already started to plan a wide range of summer activities. And I know the Honourable Member for Harlow supports summer schools and also the COVID premium to support educational recovery. School sports were mentioned, and of course there's been remote PE lessons available from the Oak Academy, but no one can wait to get back to the sports field, so more funding has been made available to enable school sports facility to stay open longer, and that will obviously, many of these will involve community and volunteers, as the Honourable Member for Sleaford and Hyken also referred. The pandemic has shone a light on the life-changing role that teachers play in children's lives, and it's inspired many others. We now have 41,500 trainee school teachers being recruited in 2020-2021. That's an increase of 23% when compared to 2019-2020. And teachers and educators have worked tirelessly to support children and will continue to do that throughout, with many teaching their pupils, whilst, let's not forget, they're also supporting the learning of their own children at home. So throughout the pandemic, vulnerable children have been prioritised for on-site attendance. Early years, special schools, special post-16 providers, alternative provisions have remained open throughout to vulnerable children and young people. And of course, as we move to full reopening, clinically vulnerable children, extremely vulnerable children, will still be advised to shield until the 31st of March and continue with remote education, as will those children who test positive, as referred to my honourable friend for Sleaford and Hykeham. So that's why we strengthened our remote education expectations in January, with over 1 million devices delivered to vulnerable children, 300,000 more to come, and schools are expected to deliver 3 to 5 hours of remote education to those that will continue on that remote learning. And additionally, I'm grateful to BT and EE, who provided free access to BBC bite-sized resources from the end of January 2021. All members have mentioned children's mental health and the concern of the impact on children's mental health. Of course, we know that we need to improve support for children and people's mental health, and this is not a new issue, but has been further impacted by the pandemic. That's why we're committed to investing in and expanding and transforming mental health services in England, and we've committed an additional £2.3 billion of funding a year, and 345,000 more children and young people will be able to get additional access and support by 2023-24. And this builds on our existing support, including our £8 million Wellbeing for Education Return Scheme, which has provided funding for expert advisors, training in every local authority area, and over £10 million of funding to mental health charities, including Mind, the Samaritans, Young Minds and Bipolar UK, and the member for Hornsey and Woodbury mentioned many of these. And we need to increase awareness. So in February, the Prime Minister did appoint Dr. Alex George as a youth mental health ambassador to advise the government and raise awareness on mental health. Plus, we are setting up a mental health in education action group, which he will sit on. So I'd like to thank the House for this opportunity to discuss the route map for schools and colleges in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We continue to be impressed by the resilience and positivity of everybody involved, parents, students, teachers, of course, throughout these difficult times. And I know that the whole country will be delighted that children are returning to schools and colleges and will once again see their families and get the education that they deserve. Thank you.
Steve Brown.